Very quickly, I realised I was a multimillionaire, surrounded by multimillionaires, and I was betting on the collapse of our society.
Hello, Gary. Welcome to How the Light Gets In.
Thanks for having me.
So, many of us now know your career trajectory. Born and raised in humble conditions, you joined Citibank in the world of finance very young, making millions in your 20s before leaving at 27 in disappointment. You now criticize the world you left behind and the current economic system that benefits the rich at the expense of everyone else. What made you, and presumably many young people now, want to do finance to begin with?
That's a very easy question. I wanted to do finance because I wanted to make a lot of money. I come from a poor background. I think I was always smart at school, but I was always, you get judged for being poor. I passed my 11 plus. I went to like a grammar school and I was like the poorest kid in the school. And yeah, you just don't want to be poor anymore, really. I think when I was a kid, I thought I really wanted to be rich. But looking back, I think I probably just didn't want to be poor anymore. It's hard to be poor. It's, it's tough. And I didn't want that. So I didn't really know what finance involved. But, I think if you're young and you want to make money and you're good at maths, you're going to get pushed into finance, especially in London.
Now that you know what finance involves, do you think it has any value to society?
So many people have think that my book is like an attack on the finance industry. And personally, that is not how I see it. I want you to experience what I experienced, right? I don't come from a background in finance. I won the job in a card game, so I'm suddenly on the trading floor and I don't know anything about it. And I worked with a bunch of crazy guys. And some people think I've savaged the bankers, but personally, I think I've written them quite affectionately. I don't know if you've had a chance to read the book, but these guys became kind of like a surrogate family to me. And none of them were perfect, but listen, finance is in some ways a very special place, and it's made me particularly crazy. But the truth is, anybody in their place of work, there'll be people who are really nice, there'll be people who are kind of dicks, and most people will be somewhere in between. And finance was the same. And does it add value? I think we need the finance sector. I think we need a finance sector. I think, is it right that 24-year-old kids are getting paid £500,000 while people who are working full-time jobs can't afford to turn the heating on? No. But that doesn't mean I'm against finance as an industry. I think it's a part of a modern capitalist economy.
And did your colleagues, do you sense that they felt similarly to you, both in critiquing their income?
There's different people around, So there's a character, Bill, in the book, who's from a working class background, and I think he knew that it's not right to have a world with so much poverty while some people make so much. But at the same time, it's not like somebody like Bill or even somebody like myself. You can't just walk out of the bank and change that situation. So I don't point fingers at the bankers this is your fault. But there are other guys who, they drink their own Kool-Aid to a degree. They think, I'm making £1 million a year, I must be a genius. And to be honest, there are some really smart people there. There are also some kind of crazy people who are getting paid way more than they should. You can't simplify it, The book has a lot of different kind of people, and they don't all believe the same thing.
In an ideal society, would anyone make £1 million?
Listen, I don't want to get rid of rich people. I think if you do something really, really good for the society you're in, you should make £1 million. I don't mind if Lionel Messi makes £1 million. I don't mind if Kylian Mbappe makes £1 million. They're good footballers, and people all over the world want to pay to watch them. The problem for me comes when you are combining. First of all, there's people who make much more than £1 million. There's people who make tens, hundreds of millions of pounds with this growing poverty. And I think some people think that you don't have poverty in a rich country like the UK. There is poverty here. There is real poverty here, and it is growing. And for a long time in this sort of Cameron Osborne austerity years, we were really kicking the bottom sort of 10-20%, and the rest of us could kind of ignore it. But now, you're seeing in the middle of society, your average person struggling to pay the bills, struggling to pay the mortgage. I don't think you can justify some people living in extreme luxury whilst half of society is struggling to eat.
You've said that the question you get the most on your channel is, Gary, how do I make money? How can we change that mentality? It seems to be at the heart of it.
I thought you were going to ask me, how do I make money?
Later, off camera.
I mean, I think the reason people ask that is because we have created an economy, a society, where if you lose the big game of economics, you are really, really, really screwed. My dad, he made like 20 grand a year, which is probably puts him, I don't know, like 25th percentile. It's lower than average income for his whole life. And on that, he was able to raise 3 kids, have a family. And yeah, we were poor, but he owns his own house now. He's got like a relatively comfortable retirement. It's not luxurious, but he was able to do that on a less than average wage, right? Now, and you know, now if you lose the game and you come to the bottom, you know, my sister struggles to pay the rent, you know, and she's got 2 degrees, but she works in the arts, you know what I mean? And like, this is the world we've created now where, you know, hardworking people who are educated and good at what they do can't pay the rent. And if you create this economy, then of course people are going to be obsessed with making money. You know, if you create an economy where, okay, the rich will do well, but everybody else will be given dignity and respect and the ability to have a family and have a place to live, then some people are going to choose a less stressful option. But if you create this harsh society where the poor get eaten alive, then of course people are obsessed with money. So I think, you know, if you want to change the way people play the game, you've got to change the rules of the system.
But you don't want to overturn capitalism, or do you?
No, I think that's probably way beyond my... Listen, I'm a classically trained economist. I've got economics degrees from London School of Economics and Oxford. You know, if some guys have a plan for a better system than capitalism, you know, I'll have a look at it and good luck to them. What I want to make clear is capitalism doesn't have to give poverty to most people. You know, I've talked about how my dad grew up. We can talk about what the US was like in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. We have had capitalisms which provide a decent quality of living for a big chunk of the population. And we can have better forms of capitalism than that. You know, if some guys want to tear the whole thing down and start again, good luck to them. I want to make sure that people can afford to pay the bills and keep the heating on.
So what do you think of Keir Starmer's new government? Do you think we're on the right track?
I mean, if I'm being charitable, it's too soon. We don't know what they're going to do. You know, personally, I don't think, unless they take seriously the challenge of rapidly growing inequality of wealth, I don't think they'll be able to afford to do anything significant. Some of the ways that they speak about taxing the rich and about dealing with growing inequality seem to imply they're not serious about it. I hope that they were just saying that because it will help them get elected, because they knew the Conservatives would attack them on tax. But we don't know. You know, they've got 5 years now to get serious on this problem of inequality. If I was a betting man, I don't think they will do that. But I hope that they will, and I'll try my best to make sure that they do as much as I can affect it.
Are you involved with other wealthy individuals who are trying to impact politics in this respect?
Yeah, I'm a member of an organisation called Patriotic Millionaires. I didn't choose the name, but I think it's a good name, to be honest, because it shows like we're a group of millionaires and we want rich people to be taxed more. And the woman who runs it, Rebecca Garland, is fantastic, and they get a lot of press saying we're millionaires, we want high taxes. I think it's important, and it's a good question, because I get criticised sometimes for attacking the rich, and listen, I've got nothing against the rich. I'm a rich person. Rich people are just like the rest of us. There's good people, there's bad people. This is not about the good guys and the bad guys. You know, this is about an economy which is getting worse and worse and worse, and where ordinary people can't afford basic quality of life. If you don't fix growing inequality, that will get worse. And I will welcome anyone who supports me in my campaign to stop inequality from growing, from a poor background, from a rich background, anyone.
So you don't think it's helpful to attack specifically maybe the super rich?
It's not about attack. Listen, when you change your tax system, you absolutely have to include the super rich. Because if you, At the moment, we have a situation where the super rich pay unbelievably low rates of taxes, sometimes close to 0%. And if you go and you raise the tax on the middle, and you don't raise the tax on the super rich, all that's going to happen is wealth will flow from the middle to the super rich. And eventually we'll have even more inequality. You need to stop. The real problem with inequality is that very top end. Those guys are blowing up massively. And if you don't do anything about it, more and more of the wealth will go to them. That means the bankrupting of government. That means the bankrupting of the middle class. This is obviously a bad thing. So when you change the tax system, it is absolutely vital that you make sure you include the very, very rich. Because if you don't, they'll end up owning everything. But this is not a moral campaign. You know, I'm an economist. I think I'm a good economist. I'm a good trader. I make money betting on these things. I want inequality to stop increasing. To do that, you need to raise taxes on the very rich. And I don't call that an attack. You know what I mean? This is about fixing a broken economy.
Have you read the recent FT article, which takes issue with your claim that you were the best trader?
I've not read it, but I know about it. Have you read my book?
I read parts of it.
So my book showed some of my ex-colleagues in, I would say, a very realistic light. Now, for legal reasons, I can't tell you who the people in the book are. Some people who believe that they are the characters in the book, I know because they messaged me complaining about it, have decided to go to the FT and say I'm a liar. I don't think this is much of a surprise, to be honest. They're not happy with the book. They said I'm a liar. I don't think, to be honest, I'm surprised the FT run it, really. Because it's just a lot of rich guys saying Gary's a liar. But it is what it is. It is what it is. If you're rich enough and you go to the FT and say Gary's a liar, they'll run it. You probably need to speak to Financial Times about that.
So you stand by your claim?
Oh, listen, you know, I was the #1 most profitable trader in foreign exchange and global markets, Citibank, in 2011. The funny thing is, the guy who told me that is the same guy who went and told the FT that I wasn't. But, you know, people can believe who they want to believe, you know. I haven't told any lies. This is the book. Read the book. You can see what happened.
Do you think you ruffled some feathers in the city?
Well, it looks like it, doesn't it? It looks like it. It looks like it. I mean, I think if you read the book, it's obvious I will have ruffled some feathers. And some of these guys have reached out to me and tried to message me, but I don't really want to talk to those people.
You always say guys. Were there any women in this?
There are women on the trading floor. I never once worked with a female trader in my team in 6-7 years as a trader. There are, on the trading floor, there's trading and sales, and the female interns kind of get sort of shepherded into sales. I suspect since I quit trading in 2013, 2014, I suspect there probably are more women traders now, just simply because that level of gender divide that it was when I was there is probably not acceptable anymore. But when I was there, trading was just overwhelmingly male, yeah.
Going back to the FT article though, don't you think that perhaps your emphasis on you as a especially talented individual reinforces a kind of individualistic, ego-driven tendencies that encourage young people to want to make money and that's it?
So I wrote a book saying that the global economy is collapsing. And that if we train young men to focus on competition above all else, then they will fail to see this happening. And a bunch of traders said Gary wasn't the best trader. This is kind of what I'm saying, you know. If you read the book is not me talking about Gary was the best trader, Gary was the best trader. You know, I think it should be obvious. The book is me saying, please can we stop the global economy from collapsing? It's not me who wrote the FT. The FT is the guy who's obsessed with whether Gary was the best trader or not, you know. It's not me who's obsessed with that. You know, I use what I can to bring attention to the work that I do because I don't want the economy to collapse. And, you know, maybe I'll be successful in my campaign and we will stop inequality from growing and the economy won't collapse. Maybe I will fail in my campaign and inequality will keep growing and you will see desperate poverty all across this country. It's not me who will suffer, you know, I'm a wealthy person. People can believe a bunch of my former ex-colleagues saying I'm a liar if they want to believe that. At the end of the day, it's not me who's going to pay the price, you know, it's the British people.
So how will you bring this campaign forward?
Well, I make videos every week on YouTube. I'm on Instagram. My plan really is to make videos about the economic crisis that are easy to understand, that are welcoming, that ordinary people will feel are for them. I honestly think 80-90% of people in this country don't have a single economic commentator who they understand, never mind like trust or believe. So I'm trying to make that, I'm trying to be that. I'm trying to make a space where ordinary people can understand what's happening. And I'm trying to make the case that the reason things keep getting worse is because inequality keeps getting worse. And I support that case by making predictions, which so far have turned out to be very good predictions. If you haven't had a chance, I recommend you watch my first video on YouTube in June 2020, where I predicted a growth in inflation, a growth in inequality, a growth in asset prices, stock prices, gold prices, a fall in living standards. Look, that's my training. My training is making predictions. I'm good at making predictions. It's the only thing that I'm really good at. Well, I think I'm also quite good at writing, I suppose. Look, I'm trying to persuade people if we don't fix inequality, things will get worse.
Are there any positive predictions?
We will get change. We will get change. We will 100% definitely get change. I guarantee you that. Because if we don't get change, then the economy for ordinary people will get worse and worse and worse. That means worse housing, more expensive housing, worse jobs, worse wages, worse living conditions, less financial security, less government services. And people will demand change from their politicians. So the status quo will not hold because people know the ship is sinking. People will demand change. The problem is, I'm not the only person out here selling change. There's another group of people with a voice much louder than mine that are saying the way to stop this is to reduce immigration, to have fewer foreigners. And there's a saying by, I think it's Milton Friedman, which is at times of crisis, the solution will be chosen from the ideas lying around at the time. If you look around at what the ideas lying around are for economic alternatives, it's really, really clear what the loudest idea is. And I think the second loudest idea is to tax the rich more. And if I don't win, they'll win. And I'm going to try my best to win.
So what do your friends back home think about these ideas, but also about your class jump?
Well, I mean, they've been around me for a long time, you know. People I went to school with. I was always a very talented student and I always did very well at school. So I think they weren't surprised that I did very well in my career. I passed my 11 plus and went to grammar school. So I have sort of some friends who were sort of more middle class. I have friends who went into finance. Some of them were kind of upset when I left finance. And I think something about what I did has pissed like a certain group of people off, which is not only did I turn up in trading and become very quickly one of the most successful traders, but then I just left before they could compete with me. And I think that's upset a lot of people, and I think this is perhaps one of the reasons why you're seeing some of the accusations you're seeing.
Why did you leave so young?
Well, I mean, that is in a part of the story of the book. It would be very easy for me to say to you I left because I saw the global economy was collapsing and I wanted to stop it. And that definitely was a part of it. But I think the reality is a bit more complicated than that, which is I just started to get really, really sick. But I think the two things are connected in a way. Like when I first went into the city, I was a very poor kid from a very poor background. And I think it's one thing to be a very poor kid from a very poor background, slugging it out to make money. But very quickly I realised I was a multimillionaire surrounded by multimillionaires and I was betting on the collapse of our society. And I tried to squash that for a long time because I was getting paid a lot of money, but I couldn't squash it because I think it's important that our society doesn't collapse.
Do you think that's why many people in the city turn to spirituality?
Is that popular nowadays? I didn't see a lot of that.
New Age Buddhism.
I didn't see too much New Age Buddhism. I knew a guy who had a flat with no doors, just had rotating walls, but I don't think that was a spiritual thing. I think you probably see more people turn to cocaine than New Age Buddhism. The thing you do get is people give up a lot of their youth to make money, and then they see them trying to make the trade in the other direction, trying to buy back maybe the things that they lost. But I'm not here to sort of point fingers at bankers. Bankers are not all bad people, and I think if you read the book, you will see that. I'm not worried about the bankers. I'm worried about the rest of the people in this country who can't pay their bills, who can't afford houses, who can't get decent jobs, who can't afford to have kids. Those people I'm worried about.
Have you thought of entering politics more explicitly, or?
It's not in the plan at the moment. For me, I'm actually quite strategic about what I do. I think that my best chance of having an impact is to grow my media presence, my social media presence. Things will get worse and people will look for answers. And I will try my best to explain to people why it's happening. Maybe they'll believe me, or maybe they'll believe Nigel Farage. You look at the growth in the social media. If it keeps growing at that speed, then we will have a big political influence. At the end of the day, Rupert Murdoch is not a politician, but he's a politician. And I don't have the money Rupert Murdoch has, but if I can grow a loud voice, then I hope I can influence the way things go.
So do you think if we tax the rich, that would either solve all our problems or solve most of them?
I would say it's a necessary but not sufficient condition. You need to tax the rich in the right way. If you just go and tax high-working people more, but you don't capture these very, very wealthy families, I think in the long run you'll only make the problem worse, because you'll end up increasing that concentration in the top 1%. If you tax the rich and you spend the money in ways that are corrupt, it's not going to fix the problem. But we exist in a situation now where inequality of wealth is rising rapidly. So what that means is you're sucking the wealth out of government and you're sucking the wealth out of the middle class. If you don't stop that, then both the government and the middle class will disappear. So the only way I can see to stop that is to tax the rich more and get the wealth flowing around society, get the wealth flowing back to working people. I can't see any other realistic way of doing it. You could try and massively increase the spending of the rich, but that's not easy to do. I think realistically, increasing taxation of the rich is something that we have to do, but it won't be enough in and of itself. And I'm under no illusions here. Number one, I don't think I'm going to win. And number two, I don't think it'll be easy. But I don't do what I do because it's easy. I do what I do because if we lose this, then the country, and not just this country, collapse into desperate poverty. Go to India, go to Brazil, go to South Africa and see how the ordinary person lives. And if you don't think that can happen here, read Dickens. It happened here. And it can happen here again. And it is happening here in front of our eyes. And it's hard. It's hard. And I don't think we'll win. But, sometimes people have to do things that are hard to protect their freedom.
Do you think this country is uniquely class-ridden, class-based?
I mean, look, class is a big thing here, and the only other country that I've lived and I know well is Japan, and there's obviously less of a thing there. But I wouldn't say it's unique. India has its caste system. I'm not an expert on Indian society, but it seems like class is a big thing there. I know class is a big thing in a lot of Latin America. I know class is a big thing in a lot of other countries. I'm British. I love this country. It's unique in many ways, but we have our own take on the class system. It's a big thing, but I'm sure it's not a problem only here.
Do you think that a meritocracy is a valuable substitution, or is it mainly rhetorical? Like, is it ever possible to really achieve equality of opportunity and reward the...
I think meritocracy is important in society. I believe that. I believe that if somebody works hard and studies hard and does good work that other people value, they should be rewarded. And I've got nothing wrong with people getting rich. I'm not against that. But let's be realistic here. I was probably in the top, 0.1% of earners from work my age in this country. in my early 20s, and that was enough to buy me like a couple of flats. At the same time, Duke of Westminster inherited £10 billion and paid nothing. Is that a meritocracy? Do we live in a meritocracy? The truth is, you know, you can be in the top, you know, there are people in this country, the top 10% of earners can't afford the fucking house. You know, so I believe in meritocracy, but this is not a meritocracy. You know, increasingly, the only people who can afford housing are people who get a house bought for them by their mum. Yeah, what kind of meritocracy is that?
You keep saying you're not against the rich, but don't you think that the rich collaborate against the poor or the middle class and protect their interests?
I mean, I think that's possibly giving them a little bit too much credit. Of course, you know, look, you know, if you look at somebody like Rupert Murdoch, he has been aggressively pushing for a long time the idea that the problems of ordinary people are the fault of migrants. And I think that's strategic, because I think he knows that life's getting worse for ordinary people, because it is getting worse for ordinary people. And people will demand change. And I think the two loudest voices for change are tax the rich, we're the second loudest, and much louder than us is kick out the migrants. And if you were Rupert Murdoch, which one of those would you support?
The first. What would you say?
What did you say?
If I were Rupert Murdoch.
Okay, what?
What would you say to people, though, who might accuse you similarly to Rupert Murdoch of delivering an overly simplified message that doesn't really appreciate the nuance?
I'm trying to communicate a message that ordinary people can understand without having to read a textbook. You know what I mean? If you want to read textbook economics, you know, I can send you some textbooks. Most people don't have time to sit and, you know, invert a matrix. I think it is important that we deliver economics to ordinary people in a way that they can understand. And of course that involves simplification. And, you know, if there were 10 of me, I'd have one of me working in academia writing academic papers. But there's only one of me, and I think the most important thing I can do is explain to people what's happening in a way they can understand.
And do you think, have you received a response from ordinary people about?
Well, I get about 1,000 messages a day on the internet. It's a very varied response. You know, I get stopped in the street all the time, and people are really thankful for what I do. And you know, of course, I don't always successfully convey exactly the message, exactly the understanding, exactly the beliefs that I want to convey. Because I'm not a perfect educator, I'm not a perfect teacher. I work hard to be a good one, and I think I am improving the understanding of ordinary working people. But it's a hard job, and you know, this is what I do every day. I try and think, how can, you know, when I first started my YouTube channel, it was when I first started writing articles, they were like economics. I never used my personal story at all. And then a guy got in touch with me and he was like, why you don't use your personal story? It's mad not to. And then I realized that, well, obviously we can use that, you know what I mean? And then I realized the more I use my personal story, the more people like started listening. You know, you ask me like, why'd you go on and on about being the best trader at Citibank? I'm trying to get people to listen. I'm trying to, you know, I know there were people that think I do what I do because I love to be famous, you know. I don't need this, you know, I could be on the beach in the Philippines drinking Mai Tais, you know what I mean? And most traders, being rich and unknown is a fucking nice way to live your life, you know, and I was that for a long period of time. And now I get recognized when I'm shopping in Lidl, you know what I mean? When I'm trying to buy chicken stock. Yeah, and everyone's really nice. I don't need this, you know. For me, I'm always trying to find ways, how do we communicate? And the book is part of that, and all the work that I do is just, how do we reach people?
Now that you are rich, would you give it up?
I'd rather not. You know, at the end of the day, the reason I can afford to do the work that I do, and I did the YouTube channel totally unpaid for years, is because I'm rich and I live on the income from my wealth. You know, I think I get this question a lot. Why don't you give your money away? I don't want the economy to collapse. So I work towards it not collapsing. I would like to have a family one day. When I was a kid, I did my homework lying on the front room floor on a piece of wood on the floor. And if I wanted to do a hobby, I couldn't do it because I didn't have no money. And I lived in a tiny, crowded house next to the railway tracks. And I would like to have kids of my own one day, and I would like them to have a desk and a bedroom, and I don't need a massive house, but a bit of space. And I would like to be able to do that whilst also devoting myself to the work that I'm doing, which very often doesn't pay much. If anything, there've been a lot of times when I have to pay to do the work that I do. I can only do it because of the money that I've got. But even if that wasn't true, you know, I don't think you have to give all your money away just to care about the society you live in. And I don't know who convinced people that that's the way it works. If anybody's watching, you're allowed to care about both yourself and others. Like, you're not forced to choose.
So at this moment in time, your money mainly comes from interest on your own wealth, or?
Well, I got paid for the book. So the last couple of years I managed to make some money off the book. I've managed to start making a tiny bit of money from the YouTube. It's not very much. Most of that goes on the cost of production of the YouTube. But before I wrote the book, then yeah, basically all of my income was just like income from investments, basically.
So what do you say to a young person, let's say a young 13-year-old boy from Ilford who says, how do I make money?
It's a question I get asked a lot by those people. I would never turn around to somebody like that and say like, forget it, it's impossible, or like, you need to act politically, you know. I understand why young people would be obsessed with making money, because that's the world that we put them in. So I would say good luck. But what I would say is, we've created a world now where realistically, I come from poverty, and I went to grammar school, and then I went to like 2 of the top universities in the world, and I worked in one of the best paid industries in the world. I saw very, very, very few people come from a poor background and make money. And I saw a lot of pretty mediocre people come from a rich background and make money. So the one thing I would say to somebody who's from a poor background and is obsessed with making money is, good luck, do your best, work hard, do what you can to make money. But recognize that the odds are stacked against you from the start. And if you don't succeed in your ambition of making money, don't turn around and think that it's because you're stupid, or because you're not hardworking, or because you made the wrong choices. The truth is, almost nobody from a poor background gets rich nowadays. That's the game you've been given. So if you fail, which almost everybody will from a poor background, I want these people to be able to be proud of the things that they achieve in life, which don't involve getting rich. You work hard to put money on the table, to take care of your family, to feed your kids, to pay the mortgage, even if it's not a massive house. Even that is not easy nowadays. And I think we need to create an idea of a dignified life which doesn't involve getting rich, because otherwise, what do we do to these kids who we've sold dreams of riches without ever giving them any way of making money?
A bit of a banal question, but do you think that the social media, the internet, is that helping kids specifically?
Well, I mean, I'm on social media, I'm on the internet. So, I mean, it's a big part of my project. There's a lot of negative stuff on there. You know, there's a lot of people showing off their Lamborghinis on there. You know, I grew up in London in a poor family, and you see money all around you, and it's money that you want. And for most of us, it's money we'll never have. And I think that is not good for the mental health of young people. But there's positive things out there. I try my best to be one of those positive things. I hope that I am one of those positive things. So, you know, I would encourage young people to try to find positivity where they can, but also to be there for each other in the real world, because it matters. Yeah, it matters. It's important. We're going to have some very difficult times economically going forward, especially for young people, and we're going to need each other. So, be there for each other.
All right, well, we're running out of time, but perhaps to end on a positive note, because maybe it's easier to predict a recession than positive change. What is some positive change that you actually do think?
Listen, I wouldn't do the work that I do if I thought that we couldn't win. you know, I walked away from a lot of money to do this, and it's hard, it's stressful. When a couple of years ago I got sent up to a city in North Yorkshire where Rishi Sunak was the MP, because I got sent up there because they wanted me to go to a food bank, and they wanted me to talk to the locals about how they felt about having the richest ever MP as their MP. And I went up. What was it called? That city. Anyway, it's in Rishi Sunak's constituency. I went up there, I went to the food bank, and it just happened randomly that was the weekend after Russia invaded Ukraine. And the food bank had been converted into like a donation center. And it was on the floor, it's all covered in clothes and like food and like medicines and all the nappies and all this stuff. And the food bank is full of people like packing all the things into different boxes, and they're going to drive it in their own vans to Ukraine from North Yorkshire. And it kind of like scuppered my plans basically, because, you know, I want to go and talk about Rishi Sunak, and nobody cares about Rishi Sunak because Russia just invaded Ukraine, right? So I got talking to people and I'm packing these boxes, and I asked these like guys, like, you know, like, so how do you know about this place? And the guys that were packing the boxes were the food bank users. These are the guys who use the food bank. So these are, you know, some of the poorest people in the country who can't afford to feed their families, right? And when they see some bad thing happen to some people thousands of miles away, their first instinct is we're going to go to the food bank and we're going to pack stuff and we're going to send it to them. So, you know, you ask me about this country and about class in this country, and I think it's easy to be down on this country. But you see things like that, and I don't think that is uniquely British in any way, and I'm sure the same things were happening all over Europe and all over the world. There's good people out there that want to make the world better. And if enough of us do that as well, then I think we can do it.